Good afternoon to those of you on the East Coast. Good afternoon also to those of you on the West Coast. Welcome to This Week in Pop Culture, the show in which we give you the goings on in the past week in the world of pop culture, whether we're talking about local news, film and TV news, tech news, sports news, and the like. We try to bring you up to speed so that way you are not left in the wind. I'm your host, Brandon Troy, co-creator of Movers and Shakers Unlimited. And as always, I'm not going to be alone in talking about some of the said topics this past week. So without further ado, I want to welcome my co-host, Mr. Spillman Trueheart, aka Spills. What's going on, sir?
I'm doing okay, ladies and gentlemen. My franchise got sold for the second time in a year, so that means that we're poverty. Um, we got bought by a flipper. He flipped the house, and now they saying he's gonna get arrested. But we're not gonna talk about that because it's too controversial, ladies and gentlemen. But geez, Louise.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. I mean, there are a lot of things to talk about, spills, and I mean, I would have liked to talk about your fellow Lakers and them being bought yet again, but perhaps I don't know. Maybe further down the line, maybe as we get
We're gonna
closer
do
to
a
the NBA season.
retrospective,
We're
ladies and
gonna do a
gentlemen, in 20
retrospective, and we'll
years.
probably end up talking about
We'll
it
be like,
anyway. Now that we're
oh
about
my
to get
God.
into the NBA season, and I mean, people,
Hmm.
we think that is that far away, but I mean, we're almost, into September, so give or take, what eight or so weeks, we'll be back in line with the top of the NBA season. So we for sure will probably deal with a lot of the ramifications of that, but we don't have a very large show today. It is going to be very Marvel centric, if you will. Talking about a couple of trailers that dropped, as well as some news about a certain Marvel team that many of us know that just had a season finale this past week, and now we know has a live action cast that just been announced. So we're going to dive into that. Um, so without further ado, spills, shall we dive in?
Let's dive right in.
All right, excellent, excellent. As always, I always share with you guys that since we are doing a live show, efforts will be made in order to timestamp the stories accordingly, so that way you're able to skip forwards and backwards, if you will, to whatever story you want to, hear about on today's show. But we are going to start off in sneak peeks this week because we had a little show known as D23. Perhaps you heard of it. It's a little Disney show that talks about a lot of the properties that are coming from Disney, and seeing as though Disney owns quite a few properties, Marvel included. I see you shaking your head. This feels Star Wars, Marvel included. We're gonna
The
dive
Lakers.
into right the Lakers. Well, we can say technically the Lakers
Technically,
because
but we know how that
formally,
works.
yeah, the
Yeah.
gentleman there is formerly of Disney,
Hmm.
but yes, if we're getting into the weeds of things and saying that and getting in technicalities, then yeah, I suppose you could say that too. But we had a couple of trailers that dropped this week, spills. I want to get into the first of them, and this happened on what was it? Um,
I think it was
Friday.
Thursday. Friday.
Actually
Okay,
Friday.
yeah.
We had it as I said with D23. We had a huge Marvel panel, and they dropped a lot of news, not just with some of the trailers, but with some of the casts that we've heard about with our X-Men, our rebooted X-Men cast.
Hmm.
So I wanted to get into the first one. Bring this up now. We had it with Vision Quest, which is going to be a series on Disney Plus. And for those of you that are not aware, this is apparently going to act as the conclusion of a trilogy that we had with WandaVision and with the our Agna Harkness show. I'm brain farting on the name of our Agatha Harkness show. But yeah, it's supposed to be acting as a conclusion of the trilogy of kind of that through line of the journey that we've had with Wanda as well as with Vision. And if you recall in WandaVision, sorry, I'm gonna get into a little bit of spoilers here if you haven't seen WandaVision, but we did have two visions. We had our, the vision that we know and love that has, was created out of nothing from Wanda, and then we had the rebooted, newly created Vision that was absent of all the humanity that we've come to know and love with the original character. But in the battle that they had against each other, the former Vision, or should say the original Vision, was able to transplant a lot of his consciousness into the body of this recreated Vision. So, spills. There are some reveals that we have, in this trailer. The return of what is it, of Ultron being one of them. But from what I understand, with a lot of the characters that are a part of the lore and world of the MCU, it's going to be kind of trippy, and we're going to have a lot of characters that are going to have quote unquote their human avatars versus what we know as their robotic or android avatar appearances. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I'm very interested in what they're going to do with this. I think the adaptation Vision Quest, I mean, not Vision Quest, the original, what was that? Vision
Was that
WandaVision.
WandaVision?
WandaVision. So
Okay.
I think that that was a great adaptation of the comic book, Scarlet Witch and Vision, or Vision and Scarlet Witch, I forget which one. But that it was a great adaptation. Also, the way that they used it to tie into some of the movies was really creative. I don't feel like they've used the TV shows as much to do tie-ins as they did with that show. I think that show did such a good job that they did do tie-ins with it. But I'm just interested to see where they go with Vision. I'm interested in, that they had the Vision Ghost character like you have in the display, where it's the all white version of him. And that was big in the after, ironically, in the aftermath of the Infinity Wars in the comic book. So I think they did a good job with that. So I'm interested to see what they do with this. I'm really excited for for the show. I enjoyed WandaVision, even though the internet really technically didn't. But I think the show you were looking for was Agatha All Along.
Yes. Yes.
That was a decent show. It was good that they didn't really, like, the twist that came at the end was so awesome. You're like, oh my god, all along it was her this whole time. So I enjoyed that. So I was just interested to see where they were going with this, because WandaVision was such a good show, even though it was, mixed reviews. I think it was a great show, especially coming out of the pandemic and everything. I think it was a great show. I don't know how
Well,
you felt about it.
so WandaVision, if memory serves, it was the first series that came out of the list of like Disney Plus shows that were dropping around that time, during the I guess roughly during that pandemic time. And uh from what I can tell, I mean, don't get me wrong, there have been naysayers when it's come to a lot of the Disney Plus shows, but of the Disney Plus shows, I feel like the ones that are most beloved, I would say, is WandaVision, is you have those who enjoy, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Um, uh, but I mean, they're few and far in, between in terms of the series that a lot of folks enjoy. It will be interesting to see what they do with this series. I do like the idea that they are making it kind of trippy and dealing with a Vision kind of coming to terms of what it really means to be human, and kind of playing with that. Any of those stories where you're dealing with robots or androids essentially trying to figure out what makes them more robot, or what makes them more human, are always fascinating stories to tackle. And then when you include that with the characters, like I said, that you want to have involved in this series, chief of which being Ultron, and seeing the return of James Spader in that character, it will be fascinating to be able to watch the show, and it'll be fun to be able see a lot of these actors in their human guises, because so oftentimes, they're utilizing their voices for these characters. And yes, they are, when they are, what is it, motion capturing a lot of these characters. Yeah, they're those said motion capture characters are taking on the mannerisms of the initial actor. But I feel like there's a level of magic that you have there when you're able to physically have the actor there to be able to embody those characters versus just having maybe their mannerisms or their voice. So very interested to see what they do with it and how it comes about. I'm also interested in the day and age now where I know Marvel is making it's well known that Marvel is making a concerted effort to focus more on quality versus quantity. I know that there was a period of time there when we were talking about a lot of these series where there was um, such a push to get content out there that I feel like the level of quality started to falter, and we were getting a lot of shows that were very mid. We were getting some movies that were very mid, and that prior to the run of this multiverse saga, that wasn't really the case. As I said, there are only a handful of shows that a lot of people, for the most part, enjoy a lot. WandaVision being one of them, Loki being another. And us dealing with the TVA. And then once you get past those two shows, you have other shows like Falcon and Winter Soldier. I know some people didn't enjoy it all that much. I myself enjoyed it. I know it has its mixed audiences when we're talking about that said show, but yeah, very curious to see how they're going to wrap up some elements. I do know that we'll have some other appearances in here in the series, some other surprises that are in store. So they're definitely looking forward to it. Another Diving further into another trailer that we had the Avengers trailer, which gave us some background into Doctor Doom, and his, the I guess the background on his character as it pertains to the MCU, uh, w- based off of what we have in that trailer that's shown, kind of that exposition heavy trailer. We're given some insight into Doctor Doom and his background, the fact that he formerly had a family, that he, as you would expect, has an existing relationship with the Fantastic Four. So he has an existing relationship with the Invisible Woman, with Sue Storm, with Mr. Fantastic, with Reed Richards. So it will be fascinating because I had just moments ago done if you were just with us moments ago, did a season finale breakdown, season 2 finale breakdown of X-Men 97. And it was interesting, with the guests, and shout out to Ken Arnold, and talking about, unlike the saga that we've had before this, when we're talking about the, what is it, the Infinity Saga, um now that we're in the multiverse, this multiverse saga, we don't have the luxury that we had in the prior saga of having a character that has been, built up or introduced. I feel like that's actually one of the reasons why the decision was made to have RDJ in the role of Doctor Doom. I'm sorry, spoiler alert for those that the couple of
We've
people that
all
don't
seen
know
it. We've
this.
seen it. Yeah, come
No, but
on.
I know
Get
I
from
come.
under a rock, ladies and gentlemen.
No, but I'm saying sometimes I take for granted that, unlike us and some others that, watch the show and watch some of the other shows that are out there, they're not finely tuned into all the information that comes into, the news cycle. So they may not be aware that that's what they're doing, or maybe forgotten that that's what's happening. But yes, we have RDJ in the role of Doctor Doom. And I feel like the reason, I know you kind of cynically, in a cynical way, said it had to do with money, but I think another reason is because of familiarity. It allows them to kind of shortcut having to do a lot of buildup, because we already have, even if he's playing another character, we already have some familiarity with RDJ. So it will be interesting to see how folks accept that, or how they are able to accept the character of Doctor Doom when we haven't had any real build up to him. And I mean, I know some people will argue we did technically, because if you watch Fantastic Four, they do allude to Doctor Doom. They have him at the end of that film. They have Latveria in the the various nations, when they have all the representatives of the various nations, and they show Latveria, even though he's not in the seat, is empty. And I guess it's alluding to everything that he's been up to thus far. So um, while there is some slight hint of it, we don't have like a 10 year spanning history of him popping up in credit scenes throughout some of these
Hmm.
multiverse films, like we had with like Thanos, where he was popping up in every film. And so there was this building interest of, okay, who is this person, who is this guy, like, and then we started to get more and more of him, and then we got him in Guardians of the Galaxy, and was able to learn a little bit more about him. So it will be fascinating to see how that all comes about. I'm still excited to see it. I still plan on being there on opening weekend, but I will be curious to see, for those that are like casual fans, if they'll be able to buy this character that they're just getting introduced to for the most part in this film, versus having a buildup of them in prior films.
Well, I think that Marvel has a problem. There's only so many good Marvel stories. I think that part of the things that people complain about online are that they've run out of the good things to adapt. Like they've done,
I don't know. I mean, you have years, you have decades upon decades of stories. There's so many stories to tell. And there's actually, I would argue, there's an embarrassment of stories to tell with the X-Men alone, that we are about to
they've
dive
done the
into
good
next.
X-Men stories, Brandon.
So,
Other than Age of Apocalypse, I don't see what other good X-Men stories they could do.
okay.
They've done
All
Days of
right.
Our Future Past. They've
Okay.
done the Phoenix Saga twice. They
I will
did
argue that one, but go ahead. Continue.
First Class. They've done First Class. Sure, they never did the Phoenix Saga where they go into space, which they could probably do now because it makes sense. But they've run out of all the good stories. They've done all of the good Spider-Man stories. To me, except for maybe the alien costume, and they get to the Venom thing, but that would be a retcon at this point because Venom's already a character in their universe. They've done the good Avengers story, which is Infinity War. Um, they've tried to adapt the Fantastic Four for Galactus. This is the second time that they've done Galactus. So I just feel like while they have been printing these comic books since the early 60s, they're great stories, but they've done all the great stories to me. They've done all the good Daredevil stories. They've done all the good, like there is no good Captain America story. You can't tell me, I can't tell you, oh yes, this Captain America story arc, maybe the one where he becomes a Hydra agent, but I feel like with the way the world is right now, I don't think nobody wants to see Captain America as a Hydra agent. It'd be too close to home. It's I don't like my TV HD because that's too real. That's what the situation I think is. So I think I'm really interested in what they do with this Doomsday character, and I imagine that it's going to be closer to Secret Wars of the 2010s and 20, I think
Yeah, yeah,
2010s,
they're gonna be
twenty
they're gonna adapt
rather
the
than
Jonathan Hickman, yeah,
yeah,
Jonathan
rather
Hickman
than the
run.
Secret Wars from the 80s where the Beyonder became a
Beyonder,
character,
right,
which
right.
would I think would be more grounded for patching these groups together
I don't
because
know. I would argue
in
as
the
the
time
update.
let me cook
Go
the
ahead.
reason
Go
why
ahead,
I say
cook.
this
Go
is
ahead. Go ahead
because
and cook.
the battle world situation in that world was one of the universes that weren't really as meshed as they were in the 2020. So the X-Men, it wasn't 12 X-Men that was Avengers. So the Avengers not really knowing the X-Men doesn't seem like it's as much.
Oh.
Then also having the Council of Thors will be confusing to people. I just, no spoilers alert. I'm sorry if you've not read the Secret Wars, but I just think that um, maybe it will work because this is in the aftermath of Infinity War, that they can use the Infinity Gems to try to fix um what Doctor Doom may have done, but who knows? But I just think that they've run out of the good stories for the most part. And they just will have trouble adapting new property as they move forward because it's only so again, it's only like, are we going to see a clone saga? I don't want to see a clone saga, but I feel like it's inevitable. They've done, they're doing the new Spider-Man. It's just so many stories that just are too they only have so many good stories.
I don't
So
know. I will argue
that's where I
this.
am.
I was gonna say I'll argue this. You have, as you said, if we're talking about 60 years, nearly 70 years at this point, because we're well into the 20th, the decade of the 20s here in 2000s. There's so many stories to tell, and this is what I'll argue. Even in the stories that have already existed, it doesn't need to be a one for one for what we've done before. A lot of what was done before, they bypassed a lot of stuff that are a part of the actual arc of that story. If they
Yeah,
wanted to do a Phoenix Saga, they could do a Phoenix Saga. I wouldn't suggest doing it now. I would still wait a little bit so that way there's some, space
that would be
between
the third
now.
time.
But hold on, yeah, it'll be the third time, but there's an opportunity to do the Shi'ar Empire and actually do it right, to actually incorporate the Shi'ar Empire, to actually incorporate Lalandra, to actually incorporate Gladiator. Like, the moment I keep thinking of the original '90s cartoon when he fought Juggernaut, and he had that hilarious moment with,
Gladiator.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that hilarious moment with Jubilee. She's like, "Wow, I didn't think anyone could do that to Juggernaut." And
Yeah.
Gambit was like, "Nobody from Earth."
Nobody from Earth.
uh,
Nobody from
but
Earth. Chair.
but yeah, no, I mean those are just two characters. I mean, you have Corsair. I mean, you have Cyclops' father. Like you have the Starjammers. There's so many different things that you could do to incorporate into the Phoenix Saga that hasn't been done yet. Where you're still doing the Phoenix Saga, but you're adapting it in a different way because it was never included in the other adaptations that we've seen cinematically. Um, you, outside of that, I mean, you could do the Brood. Like people love their science fiction horror. Like you could do the
But that's
Brood.
just
Like
that's the Brood is an aliens knockoff. They just said, "Oh, everybody likes the aliens." In the '80s, they said everybody likes the aliens. Let's
I'm
make
just saying,
aliens in
there's
the
so
Marvel
much out there
universe.
to do.
It is so much, but to me, with what they've crafted,
The Savage Land, we still haven't done the Savage Land cinematically. Like, I'm sorry, there's a lot to be able to adapt. It's just a matter of what are you going to adapt, and uh, uh, is it right for the story? But look, we're getting ahead of ourselves because now
yes, for sure.
we're getting into our main
We're
topic
getting in our,
soon.
our opinions.
Right, exactly. We ended up diving into the X-Men stuff, which is fitting because
That's the
that is the
topic of the
main
day.
topic story that we're going to be talking about. Let us know, how you feel about either the trailers, the Avengers Doomsday one. I also failed to mention was the San Diego Comic-Con trailer that was shown. So for those of you that saw it at D23, for those of us that were at Comic Con, we saw it first. But as I said, it's still a cool trailer because it gives some
Hashtag humble brag,
exposition.
ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it gives some exposition of what's going down with Doom. But the main topic that we're going to be talking about is the X-Men, the rebooted X-Men team that we're going to have in the MCU post Secret Wars. It was also announced during that panel that Marvel had at D23, and we had a incredible lineup. Some had already been announced as of prior to the panel. Of course, it's at this point already known to many that Sadie Sink is playing Jean Grey, who already made her appearance in the recent Spider-Man film. Sorry, spoiler alert, but it's been 2 weeks, y'all. So I feel like we're past that point of having to really worry too heavily about spoilers. We have Kit Connor as Cyclops, Samara Weaving as Emma Frost. Inde Navarrete as Rogue, and if you don't recognize that name, she's from it's the girl from Obsession. You have Christopher Abbott as Professor X, and then Maya Boyd as Storm. Let me see if I can bring up the picture that we have here. But as I said, Spills, there's so I still believe, wholeheartedly believe that there's a lot of stories to tell, but just with the list of cast members that I mentioned there, and I'll getting up the picture now. What are your thoughts?
I want to say
Oh, and hold on,
firstly,
I'm sorry. And then the biggest surprise, Adam Driver will be playing Nathaniel Essex, aka Mr. Sinister. But yes, go ahead, Spills.
all right, ladies and gentlemen. So in the naming conventions that we had, firstly, I want to shout out Marvel Studios for returning my birthday glory that it has been to the first week of May having a movie drop. They got away from this in the recent years, and I don't understand why they've done it. It's been Marvel movies dropped the first week of May since the first Spider-Man movie came out. Um, They've been doing that, and this one happens to actually drop on my birthday in 2 years. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you love me, you can send me some tickets, and I can check it out on the actual birthday there. I won't tell you how old I am because you'll have to get out of Abacus to calculate it, but that's personal business. Um, but from what I've seen of these castings, I'm really interested in it. I'm really interested in Adam Driver being Mr. Sinister. He's played cerebral villains and character actors in movies and TV shows now for so long. Sinister is the perfect casting for him. He also seems like the type of guy who has been hanging around since the 1880s and is into that bespoke kind of style. Like I could see him wearing steampunk clothes. If you seen Adam Driver walking down the street and he had like a pencil mustache and a spiky cape, you'd be like, okay, yeah, I can see him wearing that. I don't see that he's not Mr. Sinister. Um, he also seems like he's diabolically interfering in people's family trees and whatnot. Putting all kinds of stuff in there. So I'm very interested in that. Maybe this, like you said before, will have a tie-in to Corsair, and I believe the third Summers Brother Acolyte. They didn't say anything about that, but that could be a sequel. I think it could go into that. I think that's a really good way that you could do the Shi'ar Empire.
Oh,
Is
you
they
saying
have
Acolyte? You
Corsair,
saying I was going to say Vulcan, because Vulcan is a part
Vulcan.
of the
That's the
Shield.
brother.
Yeah, Vulcan. Yeah.
That's the brother. I'm sorry. Acolyte is somebody from Asteroid M. But Vulcan, yes, Vulcan. That's the guy. But I think that will definitely be a great vehicle. I think that he's a great villain for this franchise. Now that we've got all of these Marvel characters that we didn't know about casted, I think that they're a great casting. But
I got to remember
still
that though. That
in
Kylo Sinister. I like it.
Kylo Sinister. That's right. Just like Twilight Batman, this is Kylo Sinister, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna name people in the future your new name. So instead of just Mr. Sinister, because we know Mr. Sinister, obviously, but Kylo Sinister, because he's Kylo Ren, and he was pretty sinister. He was messing around with stuff. You could see Mr. Sinister using that kind of poppy lightsaber that he had. So I'm very interested to see what they do with the Sinister character. Um, you know, he's created so many things in the game. I mean, in the Marvel X-Men,
Universe. Yeah.
story and universe. I think he's like of the X-Men villains. He's like maybe number three. It's like Magneto, Apocalypse, Sinister. You can maybe put Sinister in front of Magneto. I mean, in front of Apocalypse, but I don't know. I don't know, but they're definitely great. He's definitely a great X Men villain. It's amazing we've gotten this long without seeing him, as he was such a big part of the '90s TV franchise. Sinister
Yeah.
was like the second two seasons, basically. It was like we doing
Yeah.
Sinister all this time. He's pretty freaky.
For sure.
We like what he does, and we did talk about the Age of Apocalypse. He's a pretty big person in the Age of Apocalypse, so that would be cool too. Maybe this would be a way to integrate that Age of Apocalypse, because we did preview Age of Apocalypse in Wolverine and Deadpool, but people don't remember that they had the Wolverine with one hand. Not to do my hand. Sorry. um, yeah, I think that that's interesting to see what they do with this X-Men and this castings. I think that they all good castings, but my favorite obviously is Adam Driver. I think that he has the chops to be a good villain that they really need. So we'll see what goes
I
on with
mean,
him.
yeah,
What do you think
I
about
feel
it?
like that sums it up perfect. When we're talking about the X Men in just in general, um, there's already an expectation, even for those who are casual fans of the X Men and only know them cinematically, versus knowing them in animation or knowing them in comics. There's already some baggage that's there, that exists for those that have only been exposed to them through the movies, and so I like the fact that we're having an opportunity to get some of the original roster members, founding members of the X Men. I'm not gonna lie, I would like to see Angel. Maybe Angel gets announced down the line. Maybe I'm assuming that this isn't everybody because we also didn't get an announcement of Beast either. So hopefully we get those two additions included. But if not, it's not make or break. But it would be cool to legitly have some of our founding members. We have some of them here, but not all of them. Um, it will be interesting to see what they do with Rogue. Prior to this, Rogue, I feel like, was kind of done dirty in a lot of the movies where she didn't really have the powers that she, has in the comics. And now that we actually have Captain Marvel in the MCU, they can actually do a legit adaptation of how Rogue gets her powers. If you guys don't know, she ends up, draining Captain Marvel and ends up getting a lot of those powers that Captain Marvel has, such as like superhuman strength and flight and all of that stuff. So um, it would be cool if we get a legit adaptation of that. Hopefully, because I feel like if they don't do that, it's a missed opportunity now that they're trying to kind of separate their X-Men story from what has come before. Now you have an opportunity to do a lot of the things as they are adapted in the comics. You have an opportunity to do Rogue, the way that Rogue is in the comics. Um, so does that also mean that we'll have Mystique in the story? Uh, uh, you have a villain that hasn't been done. Yes, he's been done, as you said, in the cartoons and in other media, but he hasn't really been done cinematically. There was a time long ago, back in the 20th Century Fox X-Men universe era, that they were trying to do it. If anyone remembers, I want to say it was in X-Men. What is it? Apocalypse. I feel like it was Apocalypse. You guys can correct me, that they had that end credit scene at the at Alkali Lake where Wolverine escaped. They had this group that was trying to collect all these samples, blood samples of different mutants from Alkali Lake, from the destroyed Alkali Lake. And you had
Hmm.
this guy who closed this suitcase that said Essex Corp. So we were supposed to get, Mr. Sinister sooner than we are now. So now they really do have an opportunity to make a villain all their own. If we don't have Magneto in the story, I'm actually perfectly fine with that, because that way we don't need to go
Magneto
directly.
overload.
Yeah, well, not even that. I'm just saying we don't need to have the same characters as the prior iteration of the prior iteration of the story. Like, we can have Magneto pop up in the sequel, or we can have him pop up later on in the story as kind of like an in credit button scene. But we don't necessarily. I don't feel like it's absolutely necessary to have Magneto in the story, especially if you're trying to separate yourself from what's come before. Especially now that you have, as you said, an actor of a driver's caliber that can bring a interesting villain, a charismatic villain, because these are all qualities that Mr. Sinister needs to have. He needs to be charismatic. He needs to be interesting. It needs to be funny. Like it needs to have all of these qualities, and you need someone who is able to effectively bring about a lot of those qualities in a villain. Uh, so it will be interesting to see, what they do with that. And I feel like there's enough there if they're really focusing on what Sinister is all about, of being obsessed with genetics, and the obsession that he has with Jean Grey and Scott Summers. You have enough track work in terms of plot there where you don't need to kind of confuse it, or jumble it up with other things. There's enough there where I feel like you don't need to include Magneto at this point. You could do the Savage Land, like you can legitly have Mister Sinister in a Savage Land, and I feel like having that as a location or a locale in the story will be interesting enough without having to include the icon that is Magneto. And then it gives you something to look forward to too when you're doing the next story, is by having Magneto pop up there. So and then you can also do like the Brotherhood of Mutants. You can do all of that as a sequel and not necessarily include it all in this first film. So I'm definitely interested to see what they decide to do. Sorry, I was trying to bring up a photo, but things don't want to cooperate today. In terms of technology, doesn't want to cooperate in me bringing up the photo. But I am, excited about a lot of the cast members. Samara Weaving, who we know from the Hide and Seek franchise. Uh, Excited about her being Emma Frost. I definitely feel like she, has the acting chops to be able to pull off that character. The same goes for as I mentioned just moments ago, in Indy, and I apologize, I'm butchering it, but Indy Navarrete from Obsession. She's an incredible actress. I'm not gonna lie, I thought that she was gonna play Mystique, and I would have loved to have her play Mystique, but I'm willing to also give her a shot as Rogue. I was kind of hoping for, I'm brain farting her name. They were saying that she was up for it. Our lead from Alien, Romulus. I was looking forward to having her as a Rogue, because I feel like she, also had the qualities of Rogue. But as I said, Inde from what we've seen thus far is incredible. So I'm sure that she'll, be able to take on that character of Rogue. The other part that will be fascinating too is if they decide to do the accents of a lot of our characters. Storm has definitely has a an accent that's utilized from other iterations and media that we've seen, and we also have the same with Rogue as well. So is she going to have an accent in terms of the manner in which she speaks, and if they're really going to lean into that. So it will definitely be interesting what they decide to do, but for the most part, a lot of what they had with the cast. I know a lot of people are talking about, Christopher Abbott as Professor X. I've seen him in, a number of things. He's not always playing the lead, mind you, but the characters that he has played when he is in those supporting roles, he's, an incredible character actor. So I have the utmost amount of, confidence in him playing Professor X. I didn't see it because I know there have been other names that were attached to this character, to his character, such as, like, I think at one point they were talking about Patrick Wilson. I know at another point they were talking about what is it? Our It actor. I'm brain farting on his name. Who plays
Timothy
It.
Chalamet?
No,
No.
Skarsgård.
Oh, Skarsgård,
Bill
your boy.
Skarsgård. I know. At one point they were talking about him, but I don't
He
know.
can't. He cannot be the professor. He's too much. He's
Too
too tall. They
eccentric.
can't make no. He's
Too
too no. He's
eccentric.
too tall. You
Well,
can't put a
no.
man that's 7 feet tall in a wheelchair and make you think that, oh, he's such a peaceful regular guy. It's like, wait a minute. Why is the
I wouldn't
professor
say
7 feet
that. It's
tall?
just that I would say in terms of characters that, and maybe it's just by virtue
Also,
of character.
I don't think that Skarsgård could act, but that's my own personal thing.
Wow,
I've said
wow.
it before on
I
this
can't agree
show.
with you on that. I definitely
He,
can't agree
if
with
you
you
put
on
a
that.
bunch of makeup on him and tell him to be like,
No,
"Rrr," that's cool,
no,
but that ain't acting to me. You can put a
no,
lot
I
of
can't
people
agree
in
with you on
scary
that.
makeup.
But I will say this: when we're talking about Professor X and we're talking about what Professor X has to exemplify and what you need to feel when you have that character, I love Bill Skarsgård.
He don't be
I'm
he
so
don't have paragraphs.
it's
I
not even
don't
that. It's
just
not even that. It's the
mm.
fact that I'm so used to him playing like crazy, damaged characters. There are characters out there that I feel like he would be perfect for, but I feel like it would have been a miscast to have him as Professor X. Even with the utmost awe and respect that I have in terms of his abilities as an actor, I just feel like it would be better served in playing whether it's a hero that's kind of off kilter or playing a villain. Because I feel like he would have way more to give with a lot of those characters because I feel like Professor X is very easy to make Professor X um a character that if you're accustomed to doing a lot of characters that are very uh um unique and eccentric, that I don't know if it would be fun to play a character like Professor X. I feel like there's more nuance to some other characters out there that would better serve what he's demonstrated that he can play. But as I said, Christopher Abbott, also a great actor in the things that I've seen him in. I'm looking forward to what he's able to bring to Professor X because he's also done characters that are very warm, and I feel like that is a quality that you need to have with that character. That has to be a character that you trust. That has to be a character that you're willing to follow. Like you understand why people follow that person, and has that quality that makes you want to follow them. So yes, definitely interested to see what he does with that. I am fascinated to see because I haven't seen. I'll be honest, I haven't seen much of what we have with the actress that is playing Storm. I haven't seen a lot of Maya Boyd stuff, so I'm also willing to give her a shot because I haven't seen much of her stuff. But I mean, Storm is a huge character, from what I understand. Ron Coogler had some say in the actress who would play Storm, because I'm guessing, I know it hasn't really been, brought up at this point, but very likely I'm hearing that Storm is going to pop up in Black Panther 3 and it's going to be a character in Black Panther 3. So from what I understand, he had some say so in in the casting of Storm. So I trust Ron Coogler. If he has faith in my boy, I have faith in my boy.
yeah.
I trust what his eye for knowing what fits for certain roles. But let us know in the comments what you think of the X-Men cast that were announced. That's going to do it for us here at This Week in Pop Culture. I'm gonna punt it over to Spills. Spills, can you tell folks where they can find you?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this year I need you to check in with me because I'm a fan of the MAGA Lakers now. I don't know how the Lakers became MAGA, but we MAGA now. Um,
Wow.
you could check me. I mean, that's what they are. I hate to say it, ladies and gentlemen. Looking at the starting lineup and everything, terrible. But you can find me on Instagram at Truly Still. We could talk about it, and that's great. Back to you, Brandon.
All right. Well, hold on. Here we go. You can find me at Brandon Choi ENT on X, and then Brandon Choi underscore ENT on Instagram. Um, this Stay tuned because there are a couple of shows that are coming up. We do have Colorado Springs that's happening next weekend, so I will be in the midst of that for sure. And then we have some other things coming up in the near future. One other show that is coming, I'll let you know, is Fright Reads. It's happening closer to Halloween, so we might have some things there. also happening, in between that time, September. Well, yes, we do have some in September. What am I saying? Baltimore Comic Con. I'm remiss not to mention also Baltimore Comic Con too. That's happened at the end of September. But yeah, stay tuned. Have a lot of awesome things that are on the way, and we will see you next week, y'all. So until next time, peace.
Peace, 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 peace.